And remember we said we have this huge amount, 100 million older people. So obviously health is on the front burner, but we have this younger group that's very interested in it. So what does that mean? Well, we've got these new dietary guidelines. Nobody ever listens to them, but we spend millions and millions of dollars putting them together. And they are good to tell us where we are and where we need to be. So if you look at this new data, what we find, and this is where you're going to see the most emphasis coming up, the American public is still way low in these nutrients. Whole grains, vegetables, fruits, milk, oats, fiber, potassium, vitamin D, and calcium. Okay? So that's what the big push is going to be over the next couple of years, to get more of that. And what do we eat less of? Saturated fats, sugar, solid fats, refined grains, sodium, and other calories from saturated fat. So that's kind of the overview. You've all heard it before, so let's not spend too much time on that. Hopefully they'll do more good this time than they have done in the past. Now, what are the big changes? I just want to quickly go through them. Number one, not fat, saturated fat. Okay, we had these boomers who grew up on the Mazola corn oil ads talking about that saturated fat is bad. So all of a sudden, if we're in the food business, we're going to have to start looking at our types of fat, which are all along here, the types of oils, because each one has different components of polyunsaturated, saturated fat, monounsaturated. And actually, a lot of the fats that are being used today in the food industry, like palm oil, have a surprisingly high saturated content. So you're going to see this move to the front burner. On the other hand, you see what's happened here. These are models that we've developed 18 years ago with Campbell and Pepsi and all, and they show how trends look. If you look up at this thing on the right, the blue line shows trans fats. When the government mandated it, shot up, fell back down. Commercialization is when it's a mass market. And so you see saturated is now higher than it. The other thing is including healthy oils. So those of you who are making canola oil or working with it, we're doing a lot of work with them right now. It is a big deal. People are adding oils. You're going to see a big jump in interest in mono. They call them the MUFAs. We had the PUFAs, which were the polyunsaturates, were omega-3s. Now we're going to go to the monounsaturated as the new hot fat thing that everybody wants. And to do that, we're probably going to start dipping oils and vegetable oils and canola oils and all this good stuff. Forget omega-6. The Heart Association says it's great. We want more omega-6. Big scientific controversy. A lot of talk about it. It's got to be in a ratio with 3 and 6, and that the American diet's too high in it. So while they all fight that out, canola guys are going to be the winner. All right, what's another big change? Here's what they're looking for. Calcium, this is the things they're after. You can see this hasn't changed very much. We see a lot of interest in protein because of muscle, weight loss. High protein diets have come back, and they do work. The low carb portion seems to be not part of it anymore. You meet people will love that. And crazy things are coming back, like oat bran. Here's what they most look for in a functional food: antioxidants, calcium, added vitamins, omega, green tea for fat burning and weight, and added fiber. So these antioxidants show no sign of slowing down. They're a $2 billion market, foods with antioxidant claims. So huge. Protein, we won't talk about that much in the interest of time, but check this out about young people. You're only allowed one answer here, okay? Or no, I think you're allowed your top 3. Everybody knows that the most important component of healthy eating are fruits and vegetables. Of course, it skews much older. But when you talk about saturated fat, limiting processed foods, these are the top 5 in 2011. But here comes eating a lot of protein. This will be driven by the young group. Very, very interesting. Young people equate protein with eating healthy. Natural goodness, phytochemicals. Natural goodness meaning taking something that's high in something, like antioxidants, like I said, the yogurt, mixing it back in. These are new products introduced around the world. Gene, you should see 2010. I just saw the numbers. It's off the charts. So in other words, stop adding some fake nutrients to my food. Try and do it, if you can, naturally. Add natural fibers somehow to the food, or natural vitamin C. And if you look at what do people think, how to get a healthy diet, how do you maintain good health, the top blue ones don't surprise you. They're fiber, sugar, low fat, low sodium, low calcium. Right behind it, natural, unprocessed, superfoods with antioxidants and protein. So here come some of the new things coming up in the nutrition world. These are what the phytochemicals look like. Those of you who work with these, you were talking about lutein, or lycopene before we were talking about, yeah. This is when something mainstreams. The two that have mainstreamed the fastest are the flavonoids and the polyphenols, which are pretty much the chocolate stuff that we've all heard about from Nestle and Mars and people like that. You see lycopene's got stuck down here in red. It's not the mass market. And all these things coming, next ones are anthocyanins, and they come kind of in waves, resveratrol from red wine, et cetera, et cetera. So you can hook onto these things, as I'll show you. Did I have, oh, and that last one, Welch's grape juice. Where did that one go? Oh, wait a minute. Welch's grape juice, after 120 years, had the biggest sales it's ever had when it started talking about the polyphenols, the farmers holding up the grape juice. It took it out of the doldrums and put their brand way back up on top. Here's what they're avoiding or including, those of you that are interested in this. Nothing should surprise you. You see the fats still on top, but saturated fat moved up. We see calories and whole grains. This is what they do in supermarkets. But here's the big thing. We're seeing a big jump in what we call chemical phobia. I feel like I'm back in the 80s when everybody wanted to avoid any kind of additive or preservative in food. Natural foods are up to 22.8 billion. No preservative foods are 14.5. And so anything with a chemical MSG, almost half of people, if you go down this list here, preservatives, 50% are avoiding. High fructose corn syrup, 50%. MSG, 49. Flavors. The beverage industry, there's only 7% of people in the beverage industry not using some, or the majority of as real flavors and colors. Aspartame, growth hormones, and don't let anybody tell you all these new sweeteners that are, quote, natural are in love, the public's in love with them. Almost a quarter don't trust them. They figure they're doing something to them. Here's the most desired claims on a food package right now. Whole grain fiber, low sodium, low fat. Now, one or two more just kind of interesting things. Not that organic is going bye-bye, but it's way down from what it was. Normally, it would be growing 15 to 20% a year. It pulled out last year at about 5%. And there's a lot of lost interest in organic. It's going to be very tough to pull it back. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that when you ask a consumer to define natural or organic, you get exactly, and that's what this does. You can look at it when you get a copy of this later on. It's exactly the same. Consumers don't think that there's really a difference. We know that there is, or that there should be, according to the USDA, but they don't get that. So it's hard to get somebody to pay more money if they don't see that there's any difference. The only thing that stands out, is very important for natural, is right here. See this jump here? Natural is higher because to them, natural means no artificial colors, no artificial preservatives. And so that is the difference. Now, when you go look at the hierarchy of what's important in the natural world, and this is done by the Hartman Group, and they are fabulous at this. They're the best in the country, if not the world. You see, obviously, the #1 most desired label claim in the United States is fresh. I think it's free, but #2 is fresh. And then you see, nobody wants pesticides or hormones. They start to go down the list. But you never would have seen over the last 10 years natural next. You would have seen it down the bottom with organic on top. So you see natural, here comes the sleeper. We did a big study for the Dairy Deli Bakery Association, and the one thing that popped out is humane treatment. We were absolutely spellbound. I mean, of course it's important, but we didn't know how hot a subject that really was. But in the real mass market, genuine shopper sense, certified humane came up, country of origin, locally grown, sustainable. Then we get to USDA organic. We go down, 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 seasonal free range, and then we get to organic. People think that it's not monitored that well. You know, you can have irradiated foods that were organic at one point in time. There's a lot of reasons for it, but the bloom is off the rose very, very much big time. So for what that's worth, if you're working in that area, you need to look at it.